Well, hello and welcome. And thank you for your interest in this documentary about Mensa of Northeastern New York, covering the time from 2011 back to 1963 when the group was established. This is segment 6 of the 2010 to 1963 part of the documentary. The documentary actually consists of 2 parts. The part we're going to look at now covers the time from October 2010 back to December 1963. And the other part covers the time from November 2010 through December 2011. And we'd invite you to look at that also. Well, there are 7 segments in the part of the documentary that covers the time from October 2010 back to December 1963. Segment 1 has the introduction and an overview. And then segments 2, 3, and 4 provide information and videoed interviews about the presidents and LOCSECs. Segment 2 covers 2011 to 2006, Segment 3, 2006 to 1993, Segment 4 from 1993 to 1963. And Segment 5 has information about other positions in Mensa of Northeastern New York, and also information about some other noteworthy members, both present and past. Segment 6 has information about many of the events of the group, also the communications used in the group, which are mostly the newsletters until the digital media became available. There's also information about American Mensa and the Mensa Education and Research Foundation, just in case there's anyone watching this who doesn't already know all the information about them, and the references that were used in the research of the documentation. And Segment 7 has information about the methodology, which the author considers very important in order to establish the authenticity of the contents of the documentary. It also includes acknowledgments of the many, many people who contributed either to the research or to the preparation or both of the documentary. It includes information about the heritage of Mensa of Northeastern New York and the reflections by the author after having completed the research and preparation of the documentary. There's also the other part of the documentary that covers the years from 2010 to 2011. And we'd invite you also to look at some of the segments of that part of the documentary.
Hi, my name is Rob Salkin. I'm the president of Mensa of Northeastern New York. Welcome to the first 46 of 48 years of the history of Mensa of Northeastern New York, as put together in a documentary form by Leo Kellogg. There's also a second part, which covers my term in office, beginning on November 1st, 2010. Enjoy and keep in touch.
When individuals join Mensa of Northeastern New York, often they look forward to the social aspects of Mensa membership. So let's consider some of the happy Mensa events that have taken place in Mensa of Northeastern New York. There are quite a few different types of events in Mensa of Northeastern New York where the members get together, usually visit and eat, have a good time. And we'll see some of the different types listed in the following slides. But one of the most fun kind of events are picnics. And one of the people who enjoy hosting parties is Rob Salkin. A good example of such a Mensa picnic was on May 30, 2010. And here are some of the people who were there. Andrew Heffernan, was president of Mensa of Northeastern New York at that time. And the host, happy host, Rob Salkin. Judy Keating was there. She is now the vice president. Others were Tom Milner, John Hornberger, Nadine Mayo, Susan Trottier, Ann McCarthy, Harry Ringermacher, Dean Howard, Walter Post, and John Scanlon. One of the most popular types of social events in Mensa of Northeastern New York is, I believe, the same as in many Mensa groups. It's to get together on a regular basis and just eat and talk. This has taken place since the beginning of Mensa of Northeastern New York, but there are also other kinds of events presently, as well as over time in the past. Now, some of them we'll look at just to see what they were. In 2009, the group met quarterly on Thursdays in Saratoga Springs and had a speaker at their dinner. In 2008, there was a membership recognition dinner at various locations. One of them was in Malone, which is in the very northwest corner of our territory. In 2004, there was a poetry reading, and one of the members was Harry Staley, a professor emeritus from the State University in Albany. He had already published 2 books at the time, had taught. In addition to the United States, he taught in Ireland and Paris. The event was held at the Albany Public Library and, of course, was open to the public. There were about 23 people, mostly members, the 23 people who attended the poetry reading, and most of them, probably close to 20, actually did some poetry reading. And of those who did reading, quite a few, probably 15 or more, read their own poetry. In 2002, the regular social event where they met, ate, and talked was called Sing for Your Supper, and it was held in Troy. And they had a speaker, and that particular one was Michael Fortin, a professor assistant professor at RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy. His topic was why bioethics needs to become an experimental science. In 2001, one of the events was organized by Mary Jane Rubinsky. She may have organized other events, but this particular one was to the Amsterdam Fonda area, had 3 parts. But Mary Jane was also the Gifted Youth Coordinator for several years, and she used to write on a monthly basis an article for the group newsletter about activities and opportunities related to gifted youth. This event in 2001 included a visit to the Orisville Shrine, which is a major area attraction in that region. Also a visit to Schoharie Crossing, which was part of an aqueduct of the Erie Canal. And as you may recall, the Erie Canal was a major economic factor in the 1800s. Also, there was a visit to Fort Johnson, which was the home of William Johnson, a major person in that region in the 1700s. In 1999, Mary Beth Farr was the vice president. She was proctor, and she was also publicity and membership chair. And with respect to the publicity, Ron Norris, the group president at the time, wrote in the newsletter, "Thank you, Mary Beth Farr. You have represented Mensa in the press and on TV with poise and made us proud to be in the same organization." It also happens that it was as a result of one of the newspaper articles that Mary Beth Farr put in the Albany Times-Union that I was attracted towards Mensa. In 1998, there was a First Friday event at a restaurant in Colony, and they had a speaker who was Richard Kellogg. He spoke on a competitive electric power. Rich is a longtime member of Mensa of Northeastern New York, and at one point, he was the person who organized and initiated meetings at another restaurant at which the group presently meets on a weekly basis. In 1997, Mensa of Northeastern New York hosted what was called then a local officer training session, LOTS, and that kind of event is called Leadership Development Workshop now. It was hosted and held in Albany. Jane Friedlander was the registrar. Jane had a lot to do in Mensa of Northeastern New York, held various positions, was a very active person, is not living anymore in the territory of Mensa of Northeastern New York, but does come back eventually and attended actually an event in 2011 that was hosted in Mensa of Northeastern New York. Also at that session in 1997, Don Pendley attended. He was the director of development from American Mensa. At the time, he talked, of course, on the topic of publicity. And Bill Ziegel of Mid-Hudson Mensa spoke on local group issues. Ziggy is still very active in Mid-Hudson Mensa and actually has worked with Rob Salkin, the president of Mensa of Northeastern New York, to organize and conduct several joint events between Mid-Hudson Mensa and Mensa of Northeastern New York. In 1994, there was a games event. It was also a potluck supper. People were invited to bring something to eat, some games. This was held in Schenectady at Jane Friedlander's house. In 1989, they had, as usual, a monthly meeting where they met and talked at a place, and this event at that time was called a Chat and Chew. In 1982, they had a midwinter wiener roast and games event, and this was held in Peggy Shambo's house in Schenectady. Peggy Shambo is a past president of Mensa of Northeastern New York. And in 1979, the group held a dinner cruise on Lake George. That would still be a very interesting activity and is widely carried on in the public still at Lake George. In 2006, Mensa of Northeastern New York was the host of the Mensa Colloquium 2006, which was called Revolution in Cosmology. Harry and Judy Ringermacher were the co-chairs of Colloquium 2006 of the Mensa Education and Research Foundation. It was held October 6 to 8 in 2006. For 2 years before that, Doc Harry, that's Harry Ringermacher, who has a PhD and works as a senior research physicist at General Electric Company in Schenectady. So for 2 years, Doc Harry gave seminars at regional gatherings, annual gatherings, and world gatherings across America to promote it. The colloquium was a stimulating mix of information, revelation, and discussion of the recent discovery that dark matter and dark energy make up 96% of the stuff of the universe. Speakers at the colloquium included theoretical physicist Dr. Brian Greene, who was the keynote speaker and progenitor of the string theory, George Musser, who is editor of Scientific American, astrophysicist Francis Wilkin, astrophysicist Dr. Jeremiah Ostraker, one of the world's most influential researchers in dark matter and dark energy, and Dr. Vera Rubin, who is a world-renowned astronomer, Dr. Lee Smolin, who is a theoretical physicist, and Mark Millis, who is a rocket scientist of NASA, National Aeronautic and Space Administration. Over 300 people attended that colloquium, and there was a waiting list. There was just not room enough to accept everybody who wanted to attend. It was so good that when it was over, the officials of Mensa Education and Research Foundation stated that this colloquium set the bar for future Mensa colloquia. And this was the first national colloquium of Mensa Education and Research Foundation that was ever hosted by Mensa of Northeastern New York. In any organization, communication is essential. And in Mensa of Northeastern New York, over the years, the newsletters have been the mainstay for communication. Until recently, for over the years, they were sent out in paper form, and now more recently, they're sent out in paper form and in electronic form. The newsletters are necessary in order to set forth the goals of the leaders and the planned actions, but also to list the events, tell where they are, what they are, when they're going to be, and how a person can volunteer to help in them as well as to just plain participate. Also, other news of the group can be included in there, and there's a listing of who the leaders of the various functions are. Over the years, it's been considered very basic, sacrosanct, to assure that the newsletter was issued on a monthly basis. This is especially important due to the size of the territory of Mensa of Northeastern New York, 180 miles north and south, 61 miles east and west, adds up to about 10,980 square miles. So, the newsletter is so important that it was put in the news in the website since 2000, when the group had its first website. So now, one interesting aspect of the newsletter of Mensa of Northeastern New York is its current editor, Rich Rakowski. Rich started his current term as editor in December of 2011. However, he was also the editor in September 2000. Also, he was the editor in August 1989. So that makes Rich the editor in 3 separate decades. Mensa of Northeastern New York is indeed fortunate to have Rich as its editor. Another interesting aspect of the newsletters of Mensa of Northeastern New York is that from time to time biographies of members have been included in the monthly newsletter. In June of 2001, a feature article was written about Joseph Manuel, who is the founder of Mensa of Northeastern New York. Later that year, a biography of Priscilla Sweet was included. Priscilla is a member for a long time, is a life member of Mensa, and for many years was a proctor in Mensa of Northeastern New York. Also in 2001, a biography was included about Willard Hoyt. Willard Hoyt joined Mensa in 1966, and since that time, as a member of Mensa of Northeastern New York, Willard has been continuously active in Mensa events of the group. For 45 continuous years, Willard has contributed actively to Mensa of Northeastern New York. Outstanding. Another aspect of the newsletter is the name. Almost all the time, it has been named Moni. All letters capital M-O-N-N-Y. There was one exception, that was in the year 2003. In January 2003, the editor thought it would be a good idea to change the name to cerveau, which is a French word meaning brains in English. But that didn't seem to go over too well, so by October 2003, the name of the newsletter was changed back to Moni. When we consider the membership of any organization, including Mensa of Northeastern New York, we look at different aspects. For example, what do the members expect from the organization? What is the experience of the various members? What is the leadership capability of the various members? Where are the members distributed throughout the territory of the organization? And of course, what are the numbers involved over time of the membership? Well, in the following slide, we're only going to look at the numbers of members in Mensa of Northeastern New York. The number of members of Mensa of Northeastern New York has increased 17-fold since it started. In 1963, the group started with a total of 13 members. In 1970, there was approximately 20 members. 1971, it was about 40. 1979, it was up to 100. And then it continued on the upward trend until 1989, when it reached a high of 164. Between then and 2000, it remained in the 150s, 140s, 130s, and in the year 2000, it reached back up to 166. Since then, it has continued to climb, and at the moment, it is over 230 members. It is very likely that almost everyone who is watching this documentary is aware of the relationship of Mensa of Northeastern New York to American Mensa and the Mensa Education and Research Foundation. However, this documentary is available for people to watch who are not familiar with Mensa. So let's have a few details to show what is the relationship and what the other entities are. There may be someone who wonders, what is American Mensa and why does it exist? Well, full information about American Mensa can be located on our website, www.us.mensa.org, and that will always be up to date. However, here's a very quick summary of what Mensa is. There are three main purposes for it. One is to identify and foster human intelligence for the benefit of humanity. You can read along with these, by the way. The second is to encourage research in the nature, characteristics, and uses of intelligence. And the third is to provide a stimulating intellectual and social environment for the members. To qualify to be a member of Mensa, a person must have scored in the top 2% of the general population on any of a large number of accepted, standardized intelligence tests. And Mensa administers one called the Mensa Admission Test. The qualification to be in the top 2% can take place at any time in one's life. There are many millions of Americans eligible, as 1 in every 50 members of the general population is eligible. There are approximately 55,000 members of American Mensa. It's organized in 10 regions. There are roughly 100,000 Mensans worldwide. In American Mensa, there are 132 local groups and about 137 special interest groups. So, if you'd like more details, you can look at the Mensa website, us.mensa.org. The Mensa Education and Research Foundation is a global organization. The mission of the foundation is to recognize, encourage, and communicate excellence in intelligence, and it does this through education, research, and recognition programs. Works closely with Mensa International, of course, but it also works especially closely with American Mensa. In fact, the foundation owns the building in which the staff of American Mensa works. Also, the staff of American Mensa provides administrative support for the Mensa Foundation. There's a connection directly between Mensa Education and Research Foundation and Mensa of Northeastern New York. In 2001, Mensa of Northeastern New York had a brick installed in the Walk of the Minds of the foundation, and the brick was in honor of Joe Manuel, the founder of Mensa of Northeastern New York. Our group also has a connection with the foundation because every year we participate in the scholarship program, and also the chair of the Copper Black Award program of the foundation is a member of Mensa of Northeastern New York, Harry Ringermacher. So there is a good connection between this good organization and Mensa of Northeastern New York. The primary references about Mensa are available to anyone, and they're available at various sources. One of these references is the 50th anniversary of American Mensa history, and that covers the time from 1960 to 2010. It was written by Stacy Kirsch and is available on YouTube. Another reference is a history of Mensa for the years 1960 through 1990. That's a celebration of the 30th anniversary of American Mensa. It was edited by several people, and the chief editor was Ted Elzinga of Minnesota Mensa. Another major resource is the book called Mensa, the Society of the Highly Intelligent, written by Viktor Serebiakov. This covers the years from the beginning of Mensa in 1945 through 1985. And it shows the development of Mensa in England and the United States, and also the International Mensa organization. Information about American Mensa is available through its website, us.mensa.org. Information about the Mensa Education and Research Foundation is available on its website, mensafoundation.org. And information about Mensa of Northeastern New York is available on its website, nymensa.org. Well, this documentary about Mensa of Northeastern New York was prepared by Leo A. Kellogg, who was the first ever historian of Mensa of Northeastern New York. The documentary is copyrighted for and by Mensa of Northeastern New York, and all rights are reserved. Well, here's a listing of all the segments of the 2010 to 1963 part of the documentary about Mensa of Northeastern New York. When you're done looking at this summary, just go ahead and shut off your video. And we thank you again for your interest in this documentary about Mensa of Northeastern New York.